I'll start open though. Tom, first words, first thoughts. Now that we've seen the top 25,
Perfect.
beautiful.
Love every single one of them. The most interesting aspect to me is that there are 4 Big Ten teams in the top 8, including the top 2, and those are the only 4. And
And then nothing after that. I mean, that's a top-heavy conference. I think that's representative of what we've seen.
And then there are there are 12 total. So there's 8 SEC teams, and 7 are in the top 16. Mizzou is the only Big Ten or SEC team to be ranked outside the top 16. And Mizzou being ranked is weird. But honestly, my takeaway from this, the biggest one, like that just popped in my head as I was watching these teams pop up. Indiana better beat Ohio State, or they're going to get them out the paint. Because if you're behind Tennessee, and I know Tennessee, and Penn State, and I know Tennessee beat Alabama, but if you want to start comparing wins, Penn State's best win right now is what? Illinois.
Yeah.
Who just lost their 3rd game. They're 6-3. And Indiana's best win is Washington, which is 5-4. So it's not all that different as far as records are concerned, comparably to Illinois. And some power ratings probably have Washington ahead of Illinois.
And I would argue that Indiana has beaten its opponent. If you want to go game control on this, I would say that Indiana has done a better job of beating its opponents than Penn State has.
So Indiana, you better beat Ohio State, man. Because if you lose, they will kick you out. They want to.
I don't know that they will kick Indiana out if they lose. But this goes back to our Monday discussion. As of now, like there's a real chance that Indiana will have beaten 0 bowl teams. You know, like yes,
they can't get crushed. There's going to be a lot of like, how does it look when it comes to the Indiana Ohio State game?
But you also have some more movement coming from teams that are directly behind them. Okay, BYU will either continue to win or it will probably be out of the paint. Right? You know, Alabama is going to play somebody coming up this weekend. So if they get the LSU win, okay. If they don't, they're out. You know, SMU is presumably going to play Miami to end the season. Like that's probably going to take care of itself. SMU, I don't think is going to get in as a 2-loss team. So I don't necessarily know, like if Texas loses again, is 10-2 Texas for sure in? Like they have one of the crazy weak schedules in the SEC this year, remember? And the Michigan win is not really holding up as, you know, a super impressive, you know, trophy on the wall. So I don't know they have to keep winning or get out the paint, but I do think like they can't go and get clipped by like 40, because then it's going to be very easy to say, and I don't know that I would totally disagree with it. I would some that, yeah, like beating down bad teams, that matters for something. But, you know, also like how do you play when you play a team that has like playoff caliber athletes on it? They probably need to like keep it within a couple touchdowns.
I would say there's a non-zero chance that Indiana finishes the season against somebody who hasn't gotten to a bowl, but I would say it's not much more than non-zero. They've beaten Nebraska, Washington, who both have 5 wins. They're playing Michigan this week, who has 5 wins, and Michigan State's got 4 wins. So I would guess that by the time the season ends, they'll be having to face 3 teams that have made
on CBS Sports Network. We did just play bowl or no bowl with half of Indiana's schedule, and we did push a couple of them over to the bowl side. So like
we did.
I do think that we're going to have that with a better and you can't use nobody who received a single vote in the AP poll, because as we've discussed often here, the bottom 10 spots on any AP poll is just for the flavor of the month.
Yeah.
Or the week.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I don't know that 8 is that disrespectful to Indiana. It's also, we don't know the distribution of voting. We don't really know how close they were to 5 or 6. We don't also, to the downside, we don't really know how close they were to like 9, 10, 11, right? That's just where they ended up.
I guess that the pod, I guess the line's after BYU. I would think that what happened is they were in a discussion they were in the second pod. They grouped that first, they had that first group. They got into the second group, and Indiana and BYU just, you know, so you can say brand bias. You can say, you know, starting opinions or whatever, that Penn State and Tennessee just won those tiebreakers to finish ahead of them. And then I think that then you jumped after BYU at 9 down into that discussion of Notre Dame, Alabama, Boise State, and SMU.
Let me ask you guys this, though. Take Indiana's exact resume, take off the Indiana logo, and put on the Michigan logo. Is Indiana 8th
Did you know that this exercise has actually been done where if you looked at where Michigan was in the first playoff rankings last year, it was almost identical strength of schedule, almost identical strength of record, almost identical like record of teams, and Michigan was number 3 as they were in the first playoff rankings.
And,
now my pushback.
And here was I'm going to give you Michigan's resume at that point. You ready?
Okay.
They'd beaten East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, and Michigan State. They were number 3.
Oh, and their margin of victory is about the same as Michigan's was. Like my pushback to that argument, though I think it is very illuminating for sure, it is that Michigan did come back from being the reigning Big Ten champion. Like it's fair.
That's
or
my
not,
point, though. It's the preseason expectations.
Yep.
But that's got to inform you. That's got to at least.
If Indiana had started the year ranked 15, they'd be a top 5 team right now.
If Indiana,
but you're a less accurate. You're a less accurate ranker if you fail to use preseason expectations. They matter every single week of the year. You should any kind of good
predictive. They're a predictive measure. These
Yeah.
rankings aren't about predicting anything. These rankings are supposed to be about what these teams have done.
Well, when we have such disparate data points in terms of like strength of schedule, though, it does make it kind of crazy to think go on what's on the field only.
I'm just, how about this? If Indiana had started,
it's crazy to think that a playoff should be based on results. It's insane.
If Indiana had started this year as the reigning Big Ten champions with their starting quarterback back and like 15 starters off a Big Ten championship team, then your dumb human brain is going to look on the field and watch this team and be like, oh, that's a top 5 team. So like, you know, I understand a little bit of that, but it's it's incredibly illuminating point, especially how Indiana is kind of getting the raw deal of this.
What ranking would we do, like? What ranking would we give it? Like, would Indiana not feel slighted by?
Anything in the top 5?
Yeah, we've got them at 5 at CBS. I mean, that's I think
that. Well, they get Michigan this week, right? I mean, Texas went to Michigan and whipped them. So let's see what they do.
Yeah, I look.
I mean that was, where were they up 20? They're up 20.
No, don't garbage time this. If they go put 42 on the board, like
that's the other difference, right? Is that Indiana tries to run it up, whereas Michigan accomplished that margin of victory in like 35 minutes and then just off the gas.
I don't know. I like relentlessness out of my football teams.
Sure, but I like let's compare
Champions
first half
whistle, bud.
Yeah, I know. Champions play. Champions don't opt out.
All right.
I don't have a Connor Stallions in Indiana. That's right. I flip sides. I'm saying Michigan only won because of Connor Stallions, and Indiana's being disrespected.
No. Hey, let me. So I don't. Let me hit up our in-house attorney. What's the statute of limitations on academic issues? If we're like more than 10 years out, then, I could. All right. So anyway, let's say
probably a state law issue. And I'm not.
Yeah. So allegedly, let's say allegedly, there were like old versions of papers for classes floating around. And I'm sure this is something that allegedly.
Was it a class that athletes and regular students took at the same time?
I'm just saying there's lots of examples of this. And allegedly, the smart thing to do is to take it, but like switch some things around, right? You got to at least like definitely change. Don't screw up not changing the name. I've seen that before. Whoops. Like you go in, you change some things around. It ain't exactly the same. Because I wonder if this committee got together and they were like, "Oh crap! Oh God!" Because do you know what's different about the top 17 of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee rankings and the AP Top 25 poll coming out of Week 10? 2 spots.
Yeah.
2 spots.